My first question would really be about, you know, the series of seminars that you both organized together in Paris in the 1980s, and how this came about, the idea of the book, and how did you decide on to use these three core categories as the main starting points for your discussions?
Well, personally, I'm no longer sure how it all came about. We met in 1981 through at a conference that was organized in New Delhi. We became friends. We met each other, and one day we had lunch, and we said, "Why don't we do this kind of seminar?" Mm-hmm. We were only planned 1 year originally. I think it was the racism and ethnicity.
Absolutely.
And that was a big success in the sense of people came and were interested. So we did a second year and then a third year. That worked very well. It was precisely the beginning, the moment when people were raising questions about what had seemed traditional ideas about class, about race, and so forth. It was a good moment to do this. Mm-hmm. But having done it, the original idea, I suppose, was to have a book as a result of each of these years' seminar. But you know, papers are of unequal quality, and then you can't get people to do it in time. And so it occurred to us, let's forget about the other papers. Let's talk about our papers, since we wrote papers for each of that. And basically the book is therefore our discussion between Étienne and me of the intellectual problem that is posed by the relationship of race to nation to class. So I think that's how it came about.
I agree. May I add a few
Please.
Details to that, as
Sure,
I remember
fine,
them?
Please.
Okay. We had met in India, and then we meet again in Paris a year after that or so, having lunch, as you said. I even remember where it was. And we start exchanging ideas and feelings about the situation in which we were. So that was in 83, if I well remember. Immanuel asks me, what is your main interest? What is your concern? And of course, implicitly that meant on the side of theory, but also on the side of politics. And that was immediately after the neo-fascist French political party that grew even bigger later, the Front National, had won its first important local elections, which was a very striking, and to most of us, I mean, in our circles, very worrying phenomenon. Of course, they were already having the same political themes, insisting on the question of Islam was not yet central, but the question, of course, of migrations, so-called invasions from the former colonized people, what is now called, I find this absolutely disgusting, reverse colonization, you know. So this was very central. It was very racist already at the time. But not in the traditional language. So migrants in France, migrants, was a very insisting theme. So I said to Immanuel, what bothers me is racism. And it bothers me because it's politically worrying and meaningful, but also because I feel somehow theoretically disarmed or unable to address this question in an efficient manner. So I said, this is what bothers me. And then I returned the question, and I said to Immanuel, what is it that you find interesting, or would you like to work in this moment? And I remember you said ethnicity. I mean, you said, which of course had a slightly different background, not only American, but so we found that in a sense we had the same interests at the same time, and that couldn't be by chance, of course.
But there's one more thing to say about class. You have to remember that it was a period right after the Second World War, from 45 on, where
I was very young.
Everyone was a Marxist. I mean, more or less. And especially in France.
Everyone on the left.
Everyone on the left, yes. And then, how shall I say, there was a sudden, relatively sudden shift in which people said, oh no, that's, you know, that's old stuff. And they removed the concept of class from the discussion. So putting it in this book is, in sense, attempting to restore the discussion of class, which had in fact disappeared, and as I say, especially in France, but not only in France, France, Italy, even Germany.